Today we're going to talk about the respiratory system. The first question I want you to think about is, what is the difference between respiration and breathing? Now, when you think about respiration, you probably think about what you know about respiration, which hopefully at this point, when you think about respiration, you are thinking about cellular respiration. You'll recall that all cells do cellular respiration. And so as we begin to think about the respiratory system, let's review and think about what respiration does. So remember, respiration is done in all cells to produce ATP. And it's done producing ATP, it uses the energy found in glucose, breaking it down to form usable energy of ATP. Now this has to be done in the presence of oxygen. So we have oxygen and glucose yield ATP plus water and CO2. Cellular respiration needs glucose, which it gets from the digestive system. Cellular respiration also needs oxygen and produces carbon dioxide, which are both gases, as waste. Well, it needs oxygen, the CO2 is the waste. So when we think about the respiratory system, we know that it has to do with the gases, and we have oxygen and carbon dioxide. We need to get oxygen into the body and to every cell. And then we have to get rid of carbon dioxide, which is coming from every cell. With that in mind, what can we say about the function of the respiratory system? Well, first of all, we need to bring in oxygen needed for cellular respiration. And we need to get rid of the carbon dioxide waste. And we also need to transport those gases between our body and the environment. So these are the primary functions of the respiratory system. As we've studied different biological concepts, one of the key ideas that we keep coming back to is that form follows function. So whatever the function is, then the form of the thing is going to follow that function. So we're going to discuss now the different forms and the functions that follow the functions of the respiratory system. To begin with, we need to get gases from the environment. And take a deep breath now. You probably breathed through your nose or mouth. So the nose and mouth are the initial place where we have air coming in from the environment into our bodies. Now, as air passes into the body, it's going to move toward the trachea. So here's a little picture of the trachea. And right as it's going to the trachea, it's going to pass through the larynx. Now the larynx is an air passage which holds the vocal cords. And it's kind of right in the, you can feel where your vocal cords are when you're talking, kind of right at the bottom of your neck where it goes down into the trachea. So the larynx, when we're thinking about form following function, it's muscular. So we do communicate, and so it is a muscular area of our system. The muscles can then move and contract in order to speak. And so that's the larynx. Now you'll think about your nose and your mouth, and when you swallow something for food, it's going to also go into the mouth. And so right at the bottom, right here where the trachea attaches to the upper respiratory system, we call this the nasal passages, as it connects right here, this area is also used in the digestive system for eating. And so we have a special little thing, a valve, that's called the glottis. The glottis is a little valve that opens and closes right over the top of your trachea. This keeps food from going down your windpipe where your air is supposed to go. So as the air moves down, it goes into the trachea. The trachea is your windpipe, and it's bringing air to and from the lungs, which are going to be down below, to the upper respiratory system, so to the mouth and nose and passage to the outside. The trachea divide into bronchi, and then bronchioles are going to be even smaller. So the bronchi are the main two tubes that divide and divide and divide as they go into the lungs, and they're connecting the lungs. They divide and continue to branch out, and then at the very end of each of the bronchi, if you zoomed way, way in to each little, to the end of each little branching tube, you would find something that looks like this, sort of. At the end of each tube is, I'm going to push these up, at the end of each tube is an alveoli. Now, an alveoli is just a small sac of air where the gas has come in from the environment. So the gas coming in contains a mixture of different gases. The one we're trying to get out of it, of course, is the oxygen, and then we're trying to deposit carbon dioxide to be removed from the body. So the alveoli are these sacs of air where this gas exchange happens. The cells in the alveoli are, the walls of the alveoli are only 1 cell thick. So they are very, very tiny. And the alveoli are covered in tiny blood vessels called capillaries. And they're dropping off carbon dioxide and picking up oxygen. Now, you'll often see in diagrams about the body systems and different anatomical diagrams, you'll notice that blood vessels are depicted as red or blue. Now, to clear up one misconception, your blood is always red. It never turns blue. So don't be confused about that. But in diagrams, we often show oxygenated blood, so blood carrying oxygen away from the lungs if it's already picked up oxygen, as we depict it as red, and we depict deoxygenated blood, so blood that needs oxygen, that does not have oxygen. It's usually carrying waste materials. We depict it as blue. So you can see here we have maybe a blue, we say blue, it's not actually blue in real life, but we have these capillaries which are blue, indicating that they might be carrying deoxygenated blood, so blood without oxygen. So it might be picking up oxygen from the air on the inside by the process of simple diffusion, typically. And then it's also going to be dropping off carbon dioxide that it has carried from other cells in the body. So that's where the real business of the lungs happens, in the alveoli. Now, let's think about how we get this air in and out. So we have these lungs, and they have tubes and air sacs, but there's no muscles in the lungs. We have a glottis, which can open and close, but it's not really moving in and air out. It's just kind of can block the way to keep food from going down. But the way that the lungs works is by the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is a muscle, and it moves up and down, inflating and deflating the lungs, pushing air out and bringing it in by moving up and down.